For too many years, families of children with devastating illnesses have felt helpless as they watch their child suffer. Today, they're taking matters into their own hands and finally finding relief treating their child with cannabis. These are their stories.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode.
Hello.
Oh my God, we're here for part 2 of this episode with Dr. I'm going to get this correct. Dr. Chris Adlakha. Yeah, I heard that correctly?
Adlakha.
Adlakha.
I apologize.
You got it right the first
It's a hard
time.
one. It's a hard
part
one.
one.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just like so excited to talk to
I
you
know,
again.
me
That's
too.
Let me get this out of the way. Now, Chris is a pharmacist out in Austin, Texas. He does independent compounding, and it's located, as I stated, in Austin, Texas. And he's here to continue our conversation about formulations, about lab testing, about all those things that happen behind the scenes that people don't see. We always end up seeing the end product, so we don't know what goes back into the R&D aspects of it, and those guys and those lab coats who are actually doing the work, not bud tenders, but actually people who are doing the real science. And Chris, thanks for coming back.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I've been looking forward to this.
Oh, you and I both, as well as Nina. She just like all day just pacing. We gotta talk to Chris. I'm like, yes, we are. We're gonna get this done. We're gonna do it.
Yeah.
So basically, where we left last off, we were talking about lab reports. Now it's somewhat can be confusing as you're reading a lab report, because a lot of times you get a lab report, you get the product, you look at the lab report, you look at the product, and there's
A disconnect.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for that word.
And
disconnect.
it could be confusing to people reading it. So we just want to know when someone's looking at a lab report, because we always tell families, get a lab report. But it's so easy to say that, but they don't really know what to look for. So can you tell us what some key things to look for when looking at a lab report?
Yeah, definitely. So, there's different lab reports that, unfortunately, none of which are required. But what's important is that going beyond just potency testing, there's also residual solvent testing, or heavy metals testing, and microbial contamination testing. So it's obviously important to know what cannabinoids are contained in the product that you're purchasing, and the concentrations in milligrams that will be listed on the lab are extremely important to reference to ensure it's a quality product. But it's also important to ensure that the company is taking it in their own right to do pesticide testing and heavy metal testing to ensure safety.
Now, when it comes to the lab reports, are companies taking shortcuts with them because of the cost that's ensued due to the testing? Like, what's on average? Like, what's the pricing of a lab report usually goes for testing?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And again, because there's no regulation requiring it, companies are definitely taking advantage of it. And to do a full panel where you're testing for pesticides as well as heavy metals as well as cannabinoid potency, you'd be looking at around $750 per batch. It could be even higher. I'd call it $1,000 really. Once you're doing a lot of testing in bulk, you can get a little bit better pricing. But it's an extremely expensive aspect that happens behind the scenes that a lot of companies avoid because of the extreme costs, and keeping in mind that it has to be done for every batch. It's not a one-time thing. You can only batch so much quantity at one time, and so that's another key thing to look for now is not only that there's lab testing, but does your product have a batch ID on it? Because in the pharmaceutical world, being a pharmacist, the way things work, when we make something in our lab, everything has a batch. Every powder, every chemical that goes into anything we compound has a lot number and a batch ID. And so if something were to ever happen to one item, we would be able to go back and say, okay, wait, we need to find every single compound that was made that had this lot number of this ingredient,
Yes.
and recall it because, if that item was corrupted for whatever reason. So it's just a checks and balances to ensure, again, consistent safety and consistency. And so the same goes for CBD. Now, again, it's not required. But what we do at Elevated is just like we do pharmaceuticals, everything, every extract used has a batch ID and lot number. Every ingredient that goes into anything that's made has a batch number and a lot number. And so we're able to know, I mean, when you look at your product, it's got a little stamp on it that will give, just a random array of numbers. But that random array of numbers is important because it allows us to know exactly who made it, when it was made, how much was made, the exact ingredients that were put into it, the exact extract that was used. And so, again, it's just, you hope. And on the pharmacy side, we've never had to recall anything. But, again, this is a case where if something were to ever occur, you want to ensure that there's checks and balances in place like that. And unfortunately with CBD, because none of this stuff is required and because companies don't have to do it, they're not doing it. I mean, a lot of them don't even know how to do it, right? For us, it was being in the compounding pharmacy world. This is what we've been doing. And so even though this is a natural alternative to medication, we still take the same, we still use the same standards that we would use that we use with pharmaceutical stuff. And so, I think I can almost guarantee you within the next 5 years, it will be required. It's just going to take time for the FDA to be able to get their guidelines in place and get the bills passed that need to happen. So.
Yeah, I love that because we had some CBD companies, and I can just call them and say, I need the lab report for batch 1020. And they were like, okay, do, and they could pull it up. And to me, that was pretty reassuring, that they,
absolutely.
and I really appreciate that.
Doing that, I can tell you right away, that's a reputable company that is not cutting corners and is doing it right.
Okay, so that's something to look out for. Not to say that companies who are not doing it, it's a bad company, but it's something to look out for when they do put the batch number on the box or the bottle.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I've seen doctored labs myself. I've seen the same lab for two products where it's in Photoshop.
I think
again,
I've seen that
when you're
too.
dealing with something that costs $1,000 and time, and nobody there to check and make sure it's actually being done. Unfortunately, there's just, call it fraud, really. I mean, there's just a lot of fraudulent products that are on the market that don't add up to what they are supposed to add up to.
And we experienced, we call a company for the lab report and they can't find it or they're shuffling around. And I'm like, that's kind of unprofessional. I mean, something so important as that, it should be readily available that any customer service rep should be able to say, okay, here, I'm going to email it to you.
Absolutely. I mean, honestly, nowadays it should even be, you shouldn't even have to call anyone. I mean, it should be where there's a QR code or something you can scan and it'll just link you straight to those lab results. And then you can line up your batch with the product. Of course, the QR code is made to link to the batch of that product, but that's the most efficient way of doing it. But yeah, there are some companies I know that don't do it on the actual packaging, but they have it available on their website. And in a scenario like that, totally fine, as long as, again, you're able to ensure that you can connect whatever batch you have to that lab, because it changes every single time. We're dealing with a natural plant.
Exactly.
So the concentrations are never, you can't just assume that the next one is going to be the same. I mean, it literally will change every.
Just to piggyback off that, and that's the reason why we have, let's say, certain companies have the synthetic version of CBD is because of the lack of consistency from the plant, because you'll never get the same, numbers, the same ratio. So that's the reason why they, utilize the synthetic version of it to keep it consistent. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, the endocannabinoids are a real thing that, all of us as humans produce. And phytocannabinoids are from a plant. Difference between phytocannabinoids and endocannabinoids is endocannabinoids are made from within, and so we make those naturally. And so what scientists do essentially, and what these drug companies do, is they make a synthetic chemical that is made to hit an endogenous receptor in the ECS system that they have found is the same receptor CBD would hit, and then they call it CBD. But at the end of the day, yes, does that ensure more consistency as far as a milligram dose and that product? Of course it does, for sure. But that takes away from the natural aspects of cannabinoids. It should be natural. This is not something that should be made synthetic. And so I think that's been a big part of why, drug companies, my fear is drug companies have you guys heard of a drug that was recently FDA approved? It's the first CBD drug to be FDA approved.
Yes, we know. Yeah.
Epidiolex?
Epidiolex. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. We missed the trial run for it.
Yeah, we were. Yeah, and also we were. Our neurologist wanted our son to. She's very excited about it. She wanted our son to
give it a shot. I'm like, nah.
But I mean, we have.
All right, so
the thing, and
I
then
don't want to go off on a crazy tangent here, but so this is an exact. So GW Pharmaceuticals is the company that makes Epidiolex, and here's the thing. So here's what I like about it. I love the fact that it is actually pure CBD that's extracted from a cannabis plant.
Okay.
It is not a synthetic form of CBD. It is actually a pure form of CBD that comes from a cannabis plant.
Okay, good to know.
But here's the problem. It comes in 100 milligrams per ml, and it comes in a 100 ml bottle. The price for one bottle is $1,500. That is a problem.
I'm sorry. What was that number again?
That is not okay. $1,500 for one bottle, which, mind you, you may need 2 or 3 bottles a month, depending on the severity of your epilepsy.
And
GW Pharma has been criticized for this, and what they said was, well, it's in line with similar FDA-approved anti-epileptics that are already on the market. But here's the problem. We work with CBD that comes naturally from the plant, which is the same type of CBD they're using, and we know that cost is absurd.
It's not that
and
much.
So, this is the problem with drug companies. As soon as they wrap their hands around it, you come into just problems like this. And so I really hope that the future of what's to come, it doesn't involve big pharma, kind of taking over and creating these crazy prices for something that costs, that $1,500, that bottle they sell for $1,500 costs them maybe $30.
Wow.
Well,
the markup is absurd.
Well, the thing is, going into that, I'm understanding is that they have an IP, so they have an intellectual property component, and that's the reason why I guess they can charge that much, or they feel they have control over that. It's their ownership because it's their patent. So
they have a patent, right?
Exactly. So I'm thinking that that's gonna be like the next thing that's happening. If not happening already, that a lot of companies in this circle is going to start looking to find something to isolate and intellectualize. Is that what you're seeing? It's probably a pattern.
But it goes beyond that, though, right? Because so the IP part of it that's completely correct. But I think where the price gouging comes in is the FDA side. As soon as you stamp something as, this is FDA approved. To get something FDA approved, it does cost a lot of money. So maybe that's the justification, right? Well, we have to pay this much money to get all the testing done, and for the fees and the application fees for getting a new drug approved, an NDA could be a couple $1 million, and so that's a real expense. And that's how they justify a lot of cost. But here's the thing. At the end of the day, it's CBD from
sad
from the plant. You don't need a $1,500 version of it that the FDA said is perfect. What you need is a real whole plant option that you purchase on your own that has checks and balances in place, that has labs that allow you to check that what you're getting is what you're supposed to be getting, and a source, or a source that you can reach out to, like a pharmacist that's doing what we're doing, that can say, hey, this is what you should use, and this is why. Reach out to a reputable source that is credentialed, that can steer you in the right direction, because I can promise you Big Pharma and FDA do not have all of our best interests in heart.
I totally agree with you, and so I'm not going to, take that any deeper because of my personal feelings. But do you see them working? I'm trying to understand, like, where are we as the industry, cancer industry, working with FDA? Are we helping them shape the regulations? Because we know more than they do. Because
we absolutely are.
Okay.
I mean, I've written multiple letters to the FDA. I've actually gone to CAPA. I've gone to DC.
Wonderful.
And spoken some panels. I've done that on the state level as well in Texas. And it's incredibly effective, because they like to hear from people that are in the industry, that are doing it, that have patient case studies, that are involved. And they listen. They do. And so that's really what we need. What we don't need is Big Pharma coming in and saying, well, we're gonna start making all these Epidiolex type products that when people need CBD, this is what they use. What we need is the FDA to say, similar to an over-the-counter medication you buy when you go to CVS or Walgreens, the FDA makes sure that that there's checks and balances for those products. And so that's what we need. We need, and if it's not the FDA, you know what, it's okay. States can do it. Texas is taking it in their own hands, and they've started to implement some regulatory stuff that wasn't required, that is now required. You have to now actually apply for a manufacturing hemp license if you're making products. You have to have a retail license if you're selling products. And so at the state level, what they're doing is they're trying to create their own control system. And so that's going to continue to happen across the board. And the FDA will likely be last, because that's just the way it goes. They're slow at everything they do. The process for them is a lot longer. But as long as states are listening to people in the industry and are trying to control what's going on, we've already made a ton of progress from how things were even a year ago. So, that's all a fantastic thing.
My goal hopefully is that the CBD could be affordable to, because we pay a close to upward of $400 a month, but for some families that's not affordable, and that's sad to me. And I
totally agree.
I was hoping with the
that's non-reimbursable too,
yeah,
as well. You can't
exactly.
get money for that.
Yeah, no insurance. Yeah.
No insurance, and I was hoping maybe if the FDA got involved, that it would be reasonable. Just how I can pay, $5 for his prescriptions, I can pay that same amount for something like Epidiolex. You know what I mean? And that would be a dream for me, that other kids will have access to this, and parents can afford this, because it's right now it's not really affordable, especially if your child needs, like you said, a couple of bottles a month.
Yeah, and the other thing with that is being on the manufacturing side with Elevated, I can tell you that there's just, and we talked about this a little bit in part one, but there's a huge gap in the cost of the cost of any extract that's being used for a full spectrum versus broad spectrum, even an isolate. There's just huge gaps in the quality of the actual extract. And so if you're using if the item that you're using, or if the CBD product you're using, let's say it's full spectrum,
Mm-hmm.
and you look at the lab and it has 20% minor cannabinoids, 98% CBD, less than 0.3% THC, a good terpene profile, that to have a product that can produce labs like that, those extracts can be anywhere from $6,000 to $12,000 a liter versus you could buy the same full spectrum, quote unquote, another full spectrum extract for $800. The difference is that the quality and how that extract was, came about, and how they extracted it, the methods they used. There's a lot of varying difference in cost. So that is a significant issue. And you're right, it's expensive. I mean, a quality CBD product, one bottle, you're looking at, anywhere from $60 to $150, depending on the dose.
Yeah, more. Yeah.
I do think as more, I know for in Texas, for example, now that hemp can legally be grown, that should allow for eventually, once these farmers get their process down and they're able to get some quality extract, the price will go down. And so, and the price is going down because more and more people, more and more farmers are getting into this. And so, the important thing, again, that, it's all about education and ensuring that consumers understand that there is a difference between the $9 bottle at the 7-Eleven and the $70 bottle at the pharmacy. There's an extremely large difference in what you're getting. I mean, even Amazon, right? I talked to so many people that have said CBD doesn't work, and I asked them what they use and where they got it, and it's some product they got off Amazon. Amazon does not allow the sale of CBD. It only allows the sale of hemp seed oil, and hemp seed oil is not CBD. It is not. It has absolutely zero benefit when it comes to treating any type of symptom. So, but people don't know that, right?
I'm glad you said that.
To go to. So, it's just an easy way to get a product. But again, when it comes to marketing and advertising, it's easy for a company to get by making people think, oh, this is the same thing I've been hearing about, but it's not. And again, it just comes back to what you guys are doing, which is, providing outlets where people can tune in and listen to people that are credible and can give them advice and tell them the facts and separate misinformation from the real information. And so, that's where my passion lies now is really just educating our communities and letting people know, and is doing as many of these types of podcasts where we can reach more people and give them a better understanding of what, the facts.
Yeah.
Amen to that, and thank you for doing that. So my question, this is an interesting one because I don't think many people even think about asking this question, but what does it mean when you have a bottle that is, the oil's dark Everest green color, and then you have this clear, this,
good question.
These shadow-like, types of colors.
Yeah.
When it comes to the oil, it's like, which one's better, the clear one
or the
dark one?
Yeah,
the one
exactly.
That smells like actual weed, or the one that's just like
first of all,
oil?
It should never be anything other than a golden color or a darker kind of oily color that you're speaking of, because I've seen green, purple, red, blue, yellow. So
white.
First of all, you want to avoid anything that has artificial flavoring. At the end of the day, I mean, we don't even flavor. So at Elevated, we don't flavor any of our products anymore. We use terpenes to add flavor, and terpenes come from the glands of the plant, just like cannabinoids do. They also have nutritional benefit. They've also found to help with things like relaxation, stress relief. Some have been found to help with promoting focus, depending on the strain. And there's hundreds of different types of terpenes, but they're aromatic, the natural aromatic compounds that are responsible for the smell and taste of the strain of cannabinoids that is basically coming from that plant. And so, again, the idea being natural. So does it taste as good as an artificial, saccharine-based artificial flavor?
No.
No, it's going to be more earthy.
Yes.
It's going to be, you're going to smell it more. It's going to be more of a plant-like taste. But it tastes a hell of a lot better than most medications out there, I'll tell you that.
Oh, yeah.
Either way.
Yeah, it does.
Now, the range of that, like, nice golden liquid color that you can almost see through, it's almost translucent. That could be a just really high quality broad spectrum form. Versus if it's more clear and has a red hint, it could be an isolate. Isolates are typically clear to start, but a CBD isolate product will start to turn red if it's an MCT oil because of the oxidation. Coconut, just like coconut water does, it starts to turn kind of a pinkish red color when air hits it. And so over time, you'll notice a little red hint. The full and what the products I tend to recommend and use if THC is an issue is the whole plant experience. And so those, again, they're less processed, so more natural. It's whole plant, and those are the ones that are going to be darker in color, maybe even a little thicker as far as the consistency. Definitely more earthy. Definitely more of a pungent taste. You can combat that taste, like I said, by infusing terpenes, which are also natural. But you're going to get a little bit more of an unpleasant taste. With that said, personally, I tasted, a Robitussin cough medicine tastes about 1,000x worse, right? So, nothing that's too crazy taste wise. And I'm sure you guys have tried a multitude of different products, and so you kind of know what I mean when I say earthy and natural.
Oh, yeah.
But the key though is, it should never be anything other than, from clear to a golden translucent color to a darker brown, and the darker brown being whole plant, full spectrum products only.
Oh yeah, we know. And sometimes we try to save the CBD oil for our son because it's so costly. But when we do take it, sometimes we're like, wow.
This kid is tough.
We're like, he's tough. Because sometimes we're like,
Yeah, they're like gagging chasing with
ourselves.
tequila.
We're like, whoa.
Well, and you got to keep it under your tongue too, on top of it all. Right?
That's tricky. And
That
even
happening.
for us,
You can't even just swallow it.
I mean, for him, on a good day, we get him to maybe hold it for 10 seconds. Is difficult for kids.
Yeah, but for him, like I said, he's a trooper for even taking this stuff. Because I was telling him, like, oh my God, he took this?
So let's talk
about.
Well,
there's also a lot of research being done on other forms of delivery, right? So you've got inhaled versions, which are currently not something that's prevalent. We're experimenting ourselves within our lab with both nasal sprays as well as oral sprays, like an asthma pipe canister.
Yes.
Because when you every different dosage form allows different types of absorption. So when you inhale something, you get the lungs involved, the alveoli can really absorb things quickly, and so if you're dealing with something like a migraine, it's just a really fast onset. And in Texas, they've basically made any smokable form of hemp illegal. And so, unfortunately, because there were some really good forms available that were in cartridges or even CBD pre-rolls. And those are great for people that suffer from migraines. That's the best example, because, when you have a migraine, you need something quick.
Yes.
And that's the fastest way of it taking effect. And so as time goes on, there's going to be more and more dosage forms that are hitting the market that, have studies behind them and have undergone, safety testing and are ready to be marketed to the world. It's just, this is also new, it's kind of like Pandora's box, and everyone's kind of going crazy. But what's great is now it's, you've got pharmacists, you've got doctors, you've got chemists, you've got, medicinal chemistry experts. You've got all these reputable people that are kind of coming together and creating this professional network and really trying to hone in on the best forms and the different versions. And it's people like you guys and myself that I feel are, responsible for sharing the factual knowledge and making sure consumers understand all of the differences that exist and kind of how to, penetrate depending on what they're looking to resolve, whether that be a migraine or seizures or stress and anxiety, etc.
I want to talk a little bit about carrier oils, because as someone's purchasing CBD oil, we have tried different oils with them, some with MCT, some with hemp seed oil, some with olive oil, fractionated coconut oil. Can we have a discussion about that? And is there any difference, or it doesn't matter?
Yeah, totally. So, there's definitely differences. MCT being the most common kind of carrier oil. But the differences really come down to the fats contained within the oil. And so we know that lipids, which are fats, are important when penetrating and affecting the ECS system. And so the type of fats that are within the oil definitely do play a role in the rate of absorption and just overall efficacy. Coconut oil, which is MCT oil, again, is made up of mainly saturated fat versus extra virgin olive oil has much higher percentages of unsaturated fat. I was talking to Osiris earlier actually about experimenting with some formulations of mixing, like 80% extra virgin olive oil with 20% MCT oil, so that you can kind of get the best of what both have to offer. But again, this is new, and so it's going to take some, experimenting and just playing with different forms to figure out, well, what is the best ultimate combination. I think if you were to start exploring options yourself, just, on Google, which I'd recommend Google Scholar over just Google, but you're actually looking at studies, a lot of the evidence points towards extra virgin olive oil being the thought to be best form to put CBD into. But again, high quality MCT oil has tons of studies now that show it to be super, super effective. And so, the other thing that makes it even more complicated is every single individual is different.
Exactly.
And so you may have one person that responds to olive oil and one that responds to MCT oil.
Yes. And so we just kind of stumbled upon, we're still testing things out. It looks like Aiden responds or absorbs the CBD better with extra virgin olive oil. And I don't know if it's the rate of his metabolism, or we just don't know, but we noticed that when we look for a CBD oil, he does much better with EVOOs.
Yep, and it's crazy, right? Because there's other people that you'll speak to, and they will tell you the exact opposite of that.
Yeah.
Well, we tried forms with extra virgin olive oil, and it didn't work that well. But then we tried this, and it's MCT oil, and it worked really well. Well, again, keeping in mind, human body is incredibly complex, especially when you get into the medicinal organic chemistry of it. And so it can be, you could lack one enzyme that makes the difference between which is better. You could have more of an enzyme that is allowing one versus the other to be more effective. And, even with it's crazy, but in our own pharmacy, when we were kind of going through R&D for our initial product, about half the staff swore by our isolate form, and the other half was swearing by a broad spectrum form. And so I personally like broad spectrum, and now that we have full spectrum, I prefer the full spectrum, but we still have staff that prefers either the isolate or the broad spectrum. And so that's another, such a key factor, and something that I think, again, reputable CBD companies understand. So, with our company, it's just company policy is if somebody comes in, they want to try out CBD, then we understand that it may be a process to find which product for them is the best. And so we have a 100% money back guarantee where we will switch it out. You buy it. If you feel like it's not perfect, it's not doing what you want it to do, then you bring it back. You're not charged. We give you the next product to the next product to the next until we find one that works. And if nothing works, you get your money back, right?
That's amazing.
Fortunately, we're usually able to find the right product for somebody within the first 1 to 2 tries. But I think that's important because nobody should be, especially when you're dealing with something that costs $100, nobody should be at the mercy of, well, I hope this works, and if it doesn't, I just lost $100. Now I a lot of people can't go spend another $100 to try the next product, and so that's something that we've implemented that I know a lot of consumers have appreciated, and I know there's other companies that, especially if they have brick and mortar stores or they're a pharmacy, that if you go in and talk to them, they're well aware of this, and so they'll stand by it. But that's, you're right. If there's no magic bullet. It's just variable, and it depends. Every individual is so different, and it just depends. Just like when you have a patient with epilepsy, there's 12 different epilepsy drugs out there, and some work for some and some don't work for others. And it's the same,
Yeah.
The way our receptor system is built, there's just no way to, unfortunately, there's no way to create this one magic bullet that just is perfect for every human body.
And that's how pharmacy is. Like, for example, I work with patients post-op. They always put on a standard oxy. Some patients want more, and some patients are knocked out. Like my father was like, "Get me off of this stuff. I'm hallucinating." But it's just everybody's body's different, and I can see how that can be for CBD.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's the thing. The scientists typically, the problem they have with CBD is unlike pharmaceutical drugs. Everything on a pharmaceutical drug is based on weight and milligrams, and it's very consistent. Versus CBD is this natural substance that you're literally, squeezing out of this plant, and so it lacks consistency. And there's now, fortunately with technology, we're able to actually weigh the amount of cannabinoids and differentiate which cannabinoids are in the extract. But there's no way of unlike a synthetic chemical that is made in a lab to have 100% consistency. And so, and I think we talked about that a little bit earlier, that's part of, I think, why Big Pharma frowns upon, natural medications. But here's the thing, as a pharmacist, opioids are there's an epidemic. You guys have heard about it. Everyone's heard of it. It's a problem. The most commonly prescribed medication for the last 100 years now has been opioids, and continues to be. And opioids are 100% debilitating. They are extremely addictive, and they cause a lot of grief. I mean, they're their own sickness in their own right. And the most ultimate problem with them is they don't treat anything. They cover up pain, right? So,
agreed.
It's not to say that a person on opioids shouldn't be on this. If you're in pain, you were in an accident, you have back pain, you need pain relief. What opioids do is they mask the pain. They don't do anything, unlike, an anti-inflammatory drug that decreases inflammation. That helps heal the problem. Opioids don't do that. They just mask the problem so you don't feel it. And CBD is extraordinary because it doesn't mask anything. It's all of its effects, which I've seen working with patients. I've seen patients go from taking a ton of opioids to weaning off of them and substituting in topical CBD and CBD orally. And it's sorry, I'm kind of losing my train of thought, but at the end of the day, so CBD actually has a positive effect on inflammation. So you're decreasing the inflammation. Inflammation is responsible for pain. So what you're doing is you're taking away the problem that a person has, which is providing relief, versus giving them this super addicting item that they're going to be on for the rest of their life that doesn't treat the problem. It just masks the symptom. And so that's honestly why Big Pharma, or why, Epidiolex came out, is because I think Big Pharma now realizes, hey, wait a minute, CBD and cannabinoids, not only, it's not the same as saying like an opioid decreases pain, CBD and cannabinoids are actually healing people. It's decreasing the amount of inflammation. And inflammation is just one example. It decreases cell proliferation in cancer. The list goes on and on and on. But again, the point being is now you're dealing with something that is not addicting. You're dealing with something that is actually treating the problem, which is why you're getting the relief you're getting. And it should not be a substitute for pharmaceutical medications. They will always have their place. The key here is understanding that just overloading people with opioids is not the solution.
That is so true. That is so true. Amen to that. My God, the time has flown, Chris. And the thing is, I have
I could go on for days, you know. So.
And that's why we're going to actually come back, because literally I'm thinking of having a panel discussion with a number of you pharmacists out there who are doing the work that's helping people out there and really getting in and seeing, you know, what is it, you know, you guys are seeing that we're not, or what we need to be aware of. The information you gave us today was very overwhelming. It's very informative, and it's just exactly what we've been looking for. And there's so much, because one of the things that I'm curious about is it relates to pharmacology as well as genetic testing, is matching someone's DNA to a possible cannabis strain or hemp strain, as you would say. So
yeah, and you know, they started that actually.
Yes,
there's
is
companies that have come out now that are testing for endocannabinoid deficiencies by saliva and hair testing.
Yes.
So we could absolutely, you know, talk about that down the road. You know, we also
definitely
have our company. We've got a medical board consisting of a psychiatric doc. We've got a family doc. We've got an orthopedic surgeon.
Whoa.
And a couple of pharmacists. And so we all get together, and they're all obviously finding success with alternative medications for their patients. And so
awesome.
We get together every quarter and we just go over patient case studies. But I'd love to come back on with,
definitely with the team.
Our orthopedic surgeon. He's a genius, and it's great to talk to someone that's in the field dealing with patient after patient after patient that can give you, you know, real life examples of how this stuff has worked. And so I'd love to do that in the future.
Definitely, yes.
You got an open invite for that one. So we'll definitely be in touch for that. So, Chris, if anybody wanted to get in touch with you, ask you some questions, come and, well, we won't send anybody out there. But, you know, anybody, you don't want somebody knocking at your door, don't know them.
That's true.
You come uninvited. But how would they get in contact with you?
Yeah, so they can visit our website. It's elevatednd.com. That's elevatednd.com. Our pharmacy portal is grandavpharmacy.com. That's Grand Ave, Avenue abbreviated, grandavpharmacy.com. Info at either of those companies is our email address, and all of our contact information is available on our website. So they can just reach out via email, or give us a call at any of our elevated shops or any of our pharmacies, which again are all listed on our website. But just check out elevatednd.com. I really appreciate you guys having me on. And, you know, again, I'm a huge advocate of just educating people and trying to get people to understand what all of this means and how it can, you know, benefit them. And so I love what you guys are doing, and I just thank you so much for having me.
Thank
Chris,
you.
The pleasure's all ours. You have no idea how much you just I was up till 3:00 in the morning last night doing some research because of you. I'm like, okay, all right, I need to make sure. I'm talking to this guy. I gotta be on point. But it also had my wheels turning too, looking for information, looking for things. I'm like, I'm gonna find something for my son. I don't care what and how long it takes. I'm gonna figure something out. So I appreciate you being on and really being very insightful and just being downright honest with your information. Really want to thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Yeah, have a great one. We'll talk soon.
Yes. Thank you. Bye-bye.